Hey there, friends. Today is day 48 of the 77-day video challenge, and I can't find day 48, or I already labeled it another day. So I'm going to do a new video for you here, talking about part 2 of the MLM journal, entry number 14, Avon the third time. So this is part 2. I wanted to back up first before I got into what happened when I signed up with Avon. I had told you in the last video, and I'll put that link in the description below so you can find the last video since it was last week. My son was 6 months old, and I forgot to tell you because the point I'm trying to make with all these videos on the multi-level marketing experience was that every time I signed up in one of those things, there was stuff going on in my life. There were, when I say stuff, I mean drama, trauma, negative things, needing money. All this stuff was always going on that caused me to look at the MLM business model as a way to identify, for me to identify with something and making money. For this time with Avon, the year before, my husband and I had left the LDS church, the Mormon church, and we'd left it legally. So that means we had gone in and wrote up letters that are very legal worded to make them terminate our membership. And if you want to leave the church, that's what you have to do. Otherwise, if you're doing stuff that they don't like, they'll come after you and excommunicate you. And we hadn't done anything wrong, so we weren't going to let them do that. So we'd left that church, and that was the church we grew up in. We'd both done missions for it. So that was a big deal. I don't feel like at that time we were in a faith crisis. We'd found an evangelical Christian church we were going to that we really liked. But then when we had our son, so I almost went into early labor at 7 months. My father fell and broke his neck, and he was one vertebrae away from the same vertebrae that Christopher Reeve, when he broke his neck and was paralyzed. That's how close my father was to ending up in a wheelchair, and he still walked. But at that time, we weren't sure he was going to live, and that was scary. And then my husband ended up in the hospital with what we know now is extreme anxiety and migraines. And he ended up staying in the cardiology ward at Lackland for 9 days. So all this while I was pregnant. Then when our son was born, he had jaundice, but he was a couple weeks early. We thought he was okay. The next week he had to go to the hospital and he had spinal meningitis, and he almost died. And anybody who's had kids and you've had to go through that kind of thing, that really screws you up as a parent. It makes you a very overprotective parent for the rest of that child's life. Our home became a hospital room, a hospital location. His little nursery was a hospital room. After he'd spent 9 days, he spent 9 days in the hospital. My first Mother's Day was in the hospital with him. And then when he got out, he had an IV in his head. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. So when he was 6 months old, my husband had been promoted to E5, and we needed money. We needed money, and so that's where we were. at that time. So we needed money. And I told you I kept seeing this woman's going by her house in Kirby that had a sign in the yard that said Avon products sold here. And I had talked to her at her yard sales, and she was a nice lady. I thought she was a nice lady. Kind of like motherly, I guess, in my view, that I wanted somebody who'd been in a long time who could help me. So that's what I did, was I signed up to do it. And because I knew with Avon I could do that around my son, because I was staying at home. And I actually was growing a garden in we were living in a duplex, a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom duplex, in this whole neighborhood of duplexes. And we grew a lovely garden in the backyard because the soil is really good here for that. And I grew all the food I used to make my son's baby food. I was very picky about what we put in his little body, especially after having meningitis. He lost almost a pound, and for a newborn, yeah, he almost died. So, yeah, so we were recovering from all of that. And so I went in to do Avon because I knew how to do it. I knew I could be good at it. And that's what appealed to me about it. And then, this is part 2, and part 3, then I'll tell you more about details of things that happened while I was in. It wasn't my mentor, the lady that signed me up. She was absolutely lovely. It's just that she died the following year, and that was horrible. It was awful. It was not expected. She drowned in a horrible flood we had here in 1998. Anyway, I'll tell that story in the next segment. Yeah, she was a really good mentor for me. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching, and I'm gonna upload the other video so we'll be all caught up with me missing videos for you guys. Please like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell for notifications. Bye.